Doug Wood. So we finally get to connect. And today I want to talk about kind of your journey with Catfish Charlie's and just some of the other things that's happening in your world. Appreciate you coming on.
You bet. Glad to be here.
All right. So, Doug, you and I, we met playing football for, what was it called? FCA. So I think we were in middle school. I went to Our Lady of Fatima, but you went to a different school. Where was that?
Grace.
So you were at Grace.
Yeah.
So we played football for 3 years, so 7th, 8th, and 9th. I think you continued on. But during that time, it was this podcast is possible because of your support of our real estate business. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, I'm confident we have the tools and the processes to help you reach your real estate goal. For more information or to reach out to us, check out the podcast description for our contact info. It was a lot of fun. You kind of get to know people around that time. But I look back over kind of all these years and thinking where the time has gone. And then you look back at the people you grew up with and the different paths of life that they took. So during that time, I didn't know you had history in the restaurant business with your family, which we'll talk about in a minute. I never would have looked at you back in those days and said, Doug Wood, he's going to have a catfish restaurant one day and be well known in the area for the food that he serves. But then you see some of the other guys that we went to school with have taken completely different paths. So something else I want to bring up, and you used to be a great singer and do a lot of singing. So let me ask you, are you still singing anymore?
Just to the wife, mostly.
Just to the wife.
Yeah.
Well, for those of you who know Doug well, you probably know he can carry a tune. For those that don't, maybe you can get him to sing Happy Birthday to you in a restaurant or something. So, Doug, I want to talk to you a little bit about kind of the path that you chose with Catfish Charlie. But before we get that, tell us kind of what you did before Catfish Charlie. What did you do right after school?
So right after school, ironically enough, I went to work at the warehouse.
Okay.
For Miss Jan, and was bussing tables there. Did that for a few months and then said, hey, I want to follow in my father's footsteps, and went and applied at Central Bank, where my dad was not, because I didn't want his help. I think he did end up contacting someone. Pull the string. And worked in the banking industry for about 7 or 8 years, and I will tell you that kind of gave me the knowledge that I needed for sales, because in the restaurant business, that's sales too.
Sure.
And from there, went to work in a restaurant, La Bella Vita, in West Monroe with Charlie Coleman, Donna Donald, and Wanda Cummings, and had a great time there, learned a lot there. But from there, I went to start selling, once again, back in sales, restaurant point-of-sale systems.
Okay.
So was doing that for Rapid Retail Solutions.
So how did you get connected with them? Was it because someone that you met when you were in the restaurant?
They are who provided our POS system. And so I just kind of knew them, and they were up working on the system and putting in a rewards program, and was with one of the owners one night, and he said, man, we're really getting busy in this I-20 corridor area, and we're way down in Lafayette. Do you know anyone that might be interested in doing sales? And I was like, So I did that for the next 7.5 years of my life.
Okay.
And that, other than the good Lord, that is what I credit most of my success to, because in 7 years, I sold somewhere between 250 and 300 restaurants a POS system.
Okay.
Which was vital to their business.
Sure.
In those days, most people were on cash registers, and people were stealing from them, and there was no way to keep up with your clientele and your base that was faithful and reward them, and so on and so forth. So really had a great run with that, and then enters Charlie Coleman, who was the first system I ever sold at Catfish Charlie's.
Okay.
And he was my boss at Copeland's, where I waited tables, and then at La Bella Vita, where I managed. And he said, hey, I'm opening up a restaurant and I need a pour and sell system. Do you have a used one? And I said, well, I might can see what I can do. Did that. And then 2 years later, he called me and he said, hey, I've got a job I can't pass up, South Texas. Do you want to buy the restaurant? And it's funny, I always tell people at that point, I'd sold around 225, 250 restaurants, and there were only about 50 still alive.
Yeah.
But those 50 is what taught me this is what you've got to do to make it work. And the number one thing that taught me was ownership presence. You've got to be there.
Yeah.
You've got to be in front of your guest. They're coming in there for a reason, and it's not just the food. They're coming in there to see you, to say, hey, we came to, spend money with you. We came to eat with you. You've got to be there for your employees, especially at a time like we've been through with COVID.
Yeah.
And the turnover rate is just tremendous. You've got to be there to make it work.
Yeah, I was going to bring this up a little bit later, but being that you're on it now, I'll hit you with it now. So you were interviewed, did an article for the 20 under 40, and they asked you, what advice do you have for other young professionals? And here's what you told them. And I'm going to tell you that I'm going to end up printing this off and hanging it up in my office because I think it's pretty powerful. It says, work hard, work often. My dad always taught me that your team will follow the shadow of their leader. If you're not there, there's no shadow to follow.
Yeah.
And that's what kind of really hit me. It really impacted me on that statement because it's a very, very true statement. If you're leading from the back, even in an environment with high turnover, it's going to be 10 times more because people want to believe in the people that they work for. Everybody wants encouragement. Everybody wants that pat on the back when they're doing a good job. For most of us, we have to have some source of income and work. I haven't found that money tree to put in my backyard yet. So you're on the job in some cases more than you are in waking hours with your family. So you want a good, healthy work environment. And if you've got a toxic leader or a leader that's not present, then you're not going to produce the results that you want.
Correct. I agree.
So when Charlie made that proposal to you about the restaurant, kind of walk us through that process of what that looked like for you and, how long did it take you to try to decide and what that handover period, what did that look like?
Okay. So I will tell you, kind of like we were talking about playing football together. Mm-hmm. And back then, the way we would have put it is not no, but heck no. Maybe that's the way we put it. Not no, but heck no. And I was happy and doing well, and family was growing, but I was traveling 5, sometimes 6 days a week.
That's got to be hard on the family too.
It was tough. I would wake up at 3 a.m., get on the road by 4, drive to Orange Beach, Alabama, go show the system to 3 or 4 restaurants down there, then drive back, and so it was tough. And so we started praying about it, Casey and I, my wife. And we talked to the family about it a bit, my dad mostly, and he was like, no, right. Not a restaurant, because he was a banker, okay? From the time he was in his 20s, he was a banker, and bankers can tell you a restaurant is not a very solid, firm foundation, for
they need
any
a lot.
help
They
from
need
the
a
bank.
lot of backing if they're going to back up.
True.
Need a lot of collateral.
So Dad was kind of against it at that point, but we prayed and we said, hey, we looked at Charlie's financials and what everything was doing, and it wasn't doing a whole lot, but it was holding its own, and maybe I didn't have to be away, all week long. So we did it. And it worked, and it worked well.
So when you and Casey decided that, this is what we're going to do, you've looked at the financials, and you took that step into it. What type of, or did you have any kind of side-by-side with Charlie through it, kind of walk you through things? Did he kind of stick with you for a couple of months to kind of show you the ropes and here's how we're ordering things? I know that you have some basic knowledge, but I'm sure there's a whole lot to go into anticipating how much food you're going to need from the grocery truck this week, and how do you really schedule people.
Yes, Charlie was more than gracious. I can remember going up there, going through the order, him teaching me, him showing me. He was not pushy in any way, shape, or form. He could have just left, but he
Right.
didn't. He also took me on 3 or 4 different on-site catering jobs
Okay.
and showed me how we do that. And in those days, that was a pickup truck and a utility trailer and fryers that you had to roll on, roll off, fill them up. And then after you got through, you had to cool down the grease with good fries, but that's the only way you could cool the grease down. And then dump that into a bucket and then put the fryers back on. Then when you get back to the restaurant, you have to take those fryers off and clean up everything. And it was tough.
There's a lot of work.
It was a lot of work. And I'll never forget the very first catering I ever did on my own was for Brother Greg Clark at Cedar Crest. And Charlie had been catering for him for 2 years, and, you know, they were great friends. And so I came out and did it and got through with the catering and went to cool the grease down so I could dump the grease into, you know, pickle buckets, 5-gallon buckets. Right. But I didn't cool the grease down quite enough. And I'm sitting out there and I'm finishing off cooling this grease down, and I look and there's grease going all over their brand new paved parking lot. And thank God Brother Greg was very gracious as well. And we still cater for those guys all the time. But there were lessons. But
Sure.
Charlie, yes, Charlie stuck it out. He helped me in every way he could.
So let's talk about some of the early growing pains. So let's advance. So Charlie's, you're flying solo now. It's your show. You're the boss. You're making everything happen. Let's talk about some of the growing pains that you went through, because I know that there's going to be people that watch this that, if not looking to start their own restaurant, possibly look at opening up a business. So what kind of growing pains did you experience that maybe you can talk about that others could look out for and not have to deal with some of the same?
Okay. I would say number one is financials. You have to figure that out. You've got to figure out, how much can we spend? How much are we truly making? I mean, it's one thing to say, hey, I'm doing X amount per week in revenue.
But to figure out what that plate truly cost you.
Yeah. To figure that out is so key. And then to start building a team. Start building a team that, you know, I've got folks like Larry that has been with me for 15 years. He was with Charlie for 2 years, so he's been there 17 years. I've got people like Eric that have been there 16 years, people like Vicky. So I have a core, and that was so important during COVID because my core stayed. The people that had been there 6, 8, 9 months, they went away. So to build that core and to know really and truly what you have to do financially to make this work from month to month is
because every month's going to be different, right? You're
Absolutely.
not guaranteed a income every month. You're not guaranteed another pandemic's going to hit, drop the hat.
Right.
And you've got commitments to employees, to suppliers, to landlords maybe throughout the process. You got banknotes potentially that you're having to pay, so having reserves. So if someone's looking at their financials and thinking about starting up a business, how many months of reserve do you think somebody should have before they have a level of comfort? I know that we can't ever predict a pandemic coming in, but when you run your business, what kind of reserves would you recommend someone maintain?
I would recommend 6 months.
6 months.
People say 3 months, but
Three cuts it really,
Brian,
really
that goes about like that. 3 months.
Trust
if you
me,
have if you have a 6 month reserve, then you've got time to make a plan.
That's correct.
Because you get to the end of that 3rd month and you're like, I got to make some changes. We got to figure this out. You know, March 13th of, I guess it was what, 19? When
2020.
2020. The government said, you're done. Unless you've got a drive-through, you're done. Thank God we had a drive-through. But we went down 66% in revenue
I can imagine.
in one day.
And you wasn't able to cut 6% of your expenses either.
Absolutely, because this restaurant's a cash flow business.
That's it.
And that's something else to think about if you're starting a business. You know, there are businesses that are not cash flow, but the restaurant is a cash flow. You've got to have it coming in if you're going to pay the bills.
That's correct.
So when that stops by 66% in one day, one afternoon, it's tough.
How was that when you got the word that you're going to have to shut down your dining room? When that hit, walk us through that process.
Ooh, you might not want, we might not want to talk about that. That was tough.
Yeah.
It was tough because there were people that still wanted to come in.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally people at the door knocking, saying, hey, can we just come in, this, that, and the other. So that was tough. The drive-through, we normally during lunch we'll have 4, 5, 6 cars in the drive-through all the time.
Building during that time.
But during that time, it was not wrapped around the building. It was all the way out to Louisville Avenue and took a left down towards Walmart. So we're, getting with our POS company. We're getting tablets like Chick-fil-A. We're trying to go out there, and then we have to learn, hey, we don't have Wi-Fi that reaches out here, so we have to stop right here to take someone's order. I mean, it was nasty. It really was. But even with all that drive-through business, it was a third of what we were normally used to. So, yes, being prepared is key.
How did your team take it during that time frame? Because I think you may have mentioned that some of the newer staff they didn't stick around for whatever reason, but you have long-term employees that have been there that are depending on their paychecks because they have bills that they have to pay as well.
Right. Well, I will never try to pat myself on the back, but early on you hear about the PPP money, and so we took advantage of that, but we did exactly what we were supposed to do. If our employees were working 20 hours a week, we were paying them 40. We were paying our bills, paying our lights, this, that, and the other. And once again, that key group of, we normally have 40, 45 employees, and that key group of about 20 of us.
Right.
We hung in there, and we made it, and we were fair and just, and it worked well.
So fair and just, I think, is a very powerful word where you hit on it that they may be working 20, but you were paying for 40. I think a lot of business owners, I don't think they put the true emphasis on their employees, even in tough times, that if you look at the cost of hiring someone or replacing a position, it is so labor intensive, so expensive to bring somebody on new. So I'm a proponent. You do what it takes to pay for talent and do what it takes to be able to keep talent because it pays out in the long run.
Absolutely.
And I think you've seen that in your business, right?
For sure.
So COVID started easing up. How long did it take you guys to get back, I hate to use the word full swing, but back into a new norm for things are starting to settle back down again? How long of a period?
So 3 weeks was drive-through only. Then myself and 2 of my managers got COVID, and of course we thought we were about to die back then. And not to take anything away from COVID, sure. I know it's a monster, and it did take out a lot of people.
It did.
But it scared us, so we shut down completely for 3 weeks. During that time, my beautiful wife said, hey, why don't we remodel the restaurant? So I was like, yeah, sure, let's do that. But I'm so grateful that we did because it is a much more fish camp feel.
Sure.
Really, you've been there. You're there all the time. I mean, it's comfortable.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to put it. It's very comfortable. But the design, and I think the design was like this all along, of keeping the people who are actually doing the work are front and center. You see the people. I don't know how much is happening in prep back behind those doors. I'm sure there's a good many people working that, but but you get to know the people who are preparing your food,
Yeah.
and you get to see the work that happens and the teamwork that goes along with it. And I think that adds to just the overall experience in itself.
Yeah. You know, I tell people all the time that come in new to the restaurant working for us, and I'll take them out there on their first day and say, look out there. What do you see? And they're like, tables, chairs. I said, yeah. Well, an hour and a half from now, it's going to be people. And if you'll watch, those people do not sit with their back to you. They sit intentionally watching that kitchen. So it's almost like we've got the food, we've got the family-friendly environment, but it's almost like a reality show too. They're watching us all the time. So, you know, that's why it's so important. You know, we're not fussing, we're not cussing, we've got our shirts tucked in, we're trying to do things to look and let folks know we're taking care of you. 'Cause
Absolutely.
they're always watching. So,
And I've never really thought about it from that standpoint, but that is true. I worked for a short time in a restaurant and could speak of the antics that went on, you know, in the kitchen. I mean, nothing that would consumer would like, oh, you can't do that, but just the horsing around that would happen. But I mean, it's a very professional operation, but not to the point where everybody feels rigid and uncomfortable. It's just a comfortable place to be. It's like how you described the floor. It's just a comfortable environment to be in.
right.
So I think you guys did great on that. And if you were going to be shut down anyway for 3 weeks, why not? Could you
Make it
imagine?
better.
Could you imagine like next week if you went to shut the place down for 3 weeks? You got businesses thriving, things are going great, and like, oh, hang on, guys, we're going to shut down for
Yeah.
3 weeks. I'd be like, oh, what are we doing here?
Yeah.
So y'all took advantage of that timing, and I think y'all were made a great choice on that. So business is up and running. You and Casey got a good operation that's going. So early on, kind of what were the two of y'all's roles in the business? Was you just front and center having to cook alongside of people and kind of visit with some of the guests? So describe some of that.
Okay, so early on, Casey was still full-time teaching, second, third grade, and she would still help every bit that she could with bills and bookwork and this, that, and the other.
But y'all probably relied on that income also to
Absolutely.
for stability.
Absolutely, 100%. And then we kind of go into a new season to where, and at that time, you know, yes, I've always told my managers that I hire as managers, we manage differently. We are working a position every day. So whether it's building plates or selling plates out to the customer, or whether it's running down to the grill or to the fry station to make sure they're okay, we're working. Now, as you and I both have gotten a little older, and I have...
You maybe, not me.
Yeah, that's right. But I have acquired some very strong talent. And, you know, we've referenced my dad earlier. You know, he would always tell me, hire people better than you.
Amen to that.
Yeah. And so that's what I've tried to do. And so the Vickies and the Erics and the Damians and my own son, you know, is now there. And my daughter is there. Casey is not teaching anymore, so she's there right now, you know. So we've utilized some different things. And so a lot of times, and my employees will laugh when they hear this, I tell them, hey, I'm just in here to kiss babies and hug necks today. But that's what I love.
But you know, that's so important in the business as well. Don't get me wrong, the food is fantastic. The service is excellent there. But my wife and I still would go to a restaurant with mediocre food, but they made you feel welcome and appreciated. Still be going there to it. It's not all about the food.
Right.
It's about the experience. And your business running a restaurant is very similar to my business selling real estate. It's a relationship business.
Yeah.
The food is only going to take you so far. The relationship is only going to take so far. Everything has to work together, but those relationships are so stinking important.
Yeah,
So
for
important.
sure.
So at some point, you were doing the catering. You talked about the mishap in the church parking lot with the grease. When did you decide, say, you know what, there's got to be a better way? We're going to go ahead and see if we can put something, a self-contained unit together, a trailer, so that we can do this and do it right. How long did it take you before you're like, you know what, I got to do something different?
Yeah. I had, there's two things with that. One was Jim Taylor and his wife, who was my cousin at the time, when he was still alive, came into the restaurant and he saw I was driving a little Toyota pre-runner Tacoma. He said, "When are you going to step up into a man truck?" And I said, I really need something bigger to haul this equipment. And he said, "I'll go see Scott Winstead in Ruston. He'll take care of you." And he did. We've been with him ever since. So I stepped up into a little bit bigger truck. And then another customer of mine, Mr. Jerry Womack,
Yeah.
who owns the trailer dealership out on 165, said, "Hey, when are you going to let me build you a trailer?" So we started looking, and within 3 years, we hadn't only built one, but we built two, a 26-footer, a 20-footer, 5 fryers on one, 4 fryers on the other, warmers, sinks, the whole, refrigerator, the whole 9 yards. And I look back now, 12 years in the past, and I can remember thinking, what took me so long to do this? Because it is, when you get through with the catering, you put a cap on those fryers and you roll.
Yeah.
It's no more wasting fries, cooling grease down, draining, pulling the fryers off, pulling them back off at the restaurant. It was just a no-brainer.
When you're in a growth mode with any type of business, you sit back and look at strictly the expense a lot of times. You're like, I just can't afford to do it. When sometimes you just take a step back, you can't afford not to do it, because when you start looking at the cost in labor and materials that you're going to save from doing something like that, I think people probably would make smarter decisions sooner when it comes to growth at that point, if they'll just take a little different look on it. So you got 2 trailers, and you start doing more catering, or are you just kind of doing about the same amount of catering?
No, so those trailers, 20 and 26 foot, we use them as billboards. So we park them out in the front parking lot.
Sure.
And almost overnight, our catering's tripled.
Wow.
Because people would see, oh, we can get the trailer.
Yeah.
We can have a trailer for the family reunion or for the graduation party or whatever.
So how many catering jobs a year right now do you think you do on average? Ballpark?
Well, I will say this. Pre-COVID, 150 to 200. Right now, sitting somewhere around 100.
Okay.
And it is building back up.
Sure.
You can feel it, feel the momentum. And we do have 2 brand new trailers being built. So we're excited, to receive those in the next month or so.
And I'm sure you probably made some improvements on things. I wish this was a little bit better, or there's some new technology we can add.
For sure.
Fryers running has got to be so hot in a trailer like that, because I don't care how much air conditioning you can pump into a place. When you have that massive exhaust fan, it ain't carrying out near the heat that you want it to carry out.
Right.
I can only imagine it gets a little warm in those trailers cooking.
So each one of the fryers runs at 152,000 BTUs. And so you got 4 or 5 going. And if you walked into my trailers right now, the 2 trailers that I originally built, the 2 AC units, the plastic molding is melted and just kind of hanging down. They don't work anymore. What we found out very, very quickly is that with that hood vent, 16 foot, 12 foot in one, 16 in the other, with that hood vent sucking up that heat, it also sucks up the AC.
Yeah.
And it's been some really tough days where we're in there with cold, wet rags on our head and just trying to stay alive.
Yeah.
But the new trailers, we have designed differently, and there will be no hood vent, but all the walls come up.
Okay.
So
you got a lot more ventilation.
Yes. We
Okay.
can close it all down and cook that way if it's 30 degrees outside, or we can just open everything up and let that heat flow out.
That's good. That'll be a nice enhancement on those, and I'm
Yes,
sure the
for
employees
sure.
will really appreciate that.
For sure.
So I know that at some point you had done some, I don't know if the right word is like pop-ups where you went to, I know there for a while you were cooking over there by Golson and West Monroe. I think you've done some things in Bastrop before, maybe in Rayville. So are you doing any of that stuff now, or is that just kind of a season of time that you did it for?
Okay, so no, we're not. First of all, Golson's was when they decided to shut the bridge down between
Okay.
Monroe and
Yeah.
West Monroe, and we were scared to death that, oh my gosh, we're going to lose so much business. So we got licensed. We went to Golson's and worked out an arrangement with him to sell in his parking lot. And then the next thing you know, the bridge shuts down, and we're going crazy over there. I mean, all we could cook over there, but the restaurant became way like 30% more business
Wow.
in the restaurant. So the bridge, not only did it not let people from West Monroe in, but it kept people in Monroe in.
Who would have thought that?
Yeah, never would have dreamed that in a million years. Now, Rayville and Winsboro and, different places like that, that was strictly during COVID.
Okay.
And I'm not going to lie, we were trying to help ourselves.
Sure, absolutely.
But we also had people calling every day. When are y'all going to come open back up? Can y'all come to Rayville and sell? And, we can't get out. We don't feel comfortable. So we went to Rayville. We went to Bastrop, Winsboro for a short stint. And that was truly overwhelming. I mean, it would be, we would open the trailer up at 10:30 to sell plates, but at 10 there'd be 50, 60 people in line. So it was a huge blessing, and it was wonderful to see those communities back us like they did. And it is something that we still talk about today. Do I want to go and put all the expense into a new building and new employees and this, that, and the other? I don't know if I'm at that stage in my life, but we have talked about, hey, maybe we do a day in Rayville, a day in Bastrop, a day in Winsboro.
Now that you mention it, it makes me think about the popularity that is really becoming a big thing on, food truck pop-ups all over the place.
Right.
And we've got, I sit here and tell you that there's a food truck that I follow, and if they're close by, I want to make sure I swing by and grab some lunch. And,
right.
They're growing in popularity, and I know that Ruston even has a little park that's just set up for
that
food trucks. So that could be something that we might see from you down the road.
Maybe so.
Maybe so. What about let's talk about Catfish Charlie's North. You stepped out, and I'm assuming you're like, well, maybe we can explore another market. So walk us through that process and kind of what you noticed and how it all went. What year was it? Was it like 2016 you did that?
Yes, 2016, and we had it open for almost to the day 2 years. And our thought process at that point was, Brian, literally, and you can remember, on a Tuesday, a Wednesday at lunch, it was standing room only.
Couldn't get in
Louisville Avenue. You couldn't get in. You couldn't find a table. So I said, why don't we try to expand and go out, a little bit away and see if we can take some of that relief off, and then surely it'll backfill, And so we did that, and I tell people all the time, Catfish Charlie's North was doing great for a restaurant that size. Had 72 seats in it,
Yeah, it wasn't a big place.
No, not at all. And it was doing great. However, the day we opened, about 30% of our business at Louisville Avenue was out there. So that is something I would tell someone that is thinking about maybe expanding, is we were 2.3 miles from Louisville Avenue. That's not far enough.
Yeah.
Not in this town. In Dallas, maybe so, but not here.
But when you look at it's kind of hard to imagine sometimes, because we see McDonald's on just about every street corner, which I think you're serving a different, I wouldn't say different clientele, because I think everybody kind of interchanges, but you're serving a different appetite. That person that comes to eat the food that you serve is willing to drive further. So if you're thinking back to West Monroe, I know my family and I, we live in West Monroe, and when it comes time, what's for supper, sometimes we don't have a problem driving into Monroe to eat at Catfish Charlie's because it's not that far, because it's what we want at that point. We're willing to drive for it. Now,
Right.
would I be willing to drive all the way out there just to get a McDonald's hamburger? Probably not.
Right.
Probably not at that point. So you notice the downturn a little bit on the main store. How long did it really take you to kind of sit there and deliberate? Man, is it really worth it? Is it really worth this continuing this?
Yeah.
What was that process like?
So it took about 1.5 years, and then Casey and I started praying and talking over that. And like I said, almost 2 years to the date, we met with our employees and we said, hey, we're going to take care of you for a little bit, but this isn't going to work. That was a Sunday afternoon. Monday morning, we had a line wrapped around the building at Catfish Charlie's, Louisville Avenue. So by God's grace, what had been taken away because we split our business, one day it was
Delivered.
back. So
How long did it take y'all to expand to cover the whole entire building that you're in now?
that's a good question.
Because I know originally when you acquired it, you may have been half the building. I don't even know if it was quite
Yeah.
half of it.
It's 3,500 square feet when we originally acquired, and that was with the prep area and the coolers and the dish area, everything. And next door was a women's hair shop.
Mm-hmm.
Next door to them was a
Something for
car
balloons.
rental. Yeah, car rental place.
Yeah.
And then there was a lingerie shop on the end. And it just so happened that as those businesses went out of business, it was all in order,
Okay.
all in line. So we were able to get a little piece at a time. And now we're right at 7,600.
It's the whole
square
building
feet.
now, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's a good sized building, and I like how it's segregated to the point to where you can have different groups if they wanted to have it. And I have yet, since you've fully expanded, I have yet not to been able to get a seat. May happen sometimes, but it's I think you're at a really good size for that restaurant.
Yeah.
What was the motive of keeping the restaurant fully open? There's a lot of restaurants at the price point you guys are at that's led by an enclosed kitchen and then a wait staff serving everyone. Why did you decide to keep that model that started instead of going with a more traditional model?
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like the model because from obviously able to cut down on some labor of having staff that has to go out and deliver food.
Right.
But I think it's a great model that you guys have, and I would think more people would try to choose that model, but it's a little uncommon in this area, wouldn't you say?
It is. It's what in the restaurant industry we call quick casual. So you're ordering at the cash register. You're taking in our case, a buzzer,
Mm-hmm.
a pager. You take that back to the table, sit wherever you want to sit, whatever's open. You fix your own drink. You come back to the table, buzzer goes off. You go get your own food. You bring it back. And a lot of people over the years have said that's a huge benefit for them because they don't feel that it's necessary to pay someone 20-25% on a tip, which is necessary for a server. I've been there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean that's what it takes for them to make it. But in our case, you're doing a little bit of work,
Sure.
not a lot, and so you have that as a savings, and that is something to think about.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that sit back and look and really compare prices. Oh, I can't believe they just went up 75 cents on this plate.
Right.
Do you have that pushback sometimes when it's time to increase your menu prices? Just because, price of fish goes up. It's not like you can't be profitable if you don't start raising your prices.
Right. So I've been there now 15 years, we've raised prices 4 times.
That's it, only 4 times.
Only 4 times. COVID was obviously one. Our French fries went from $22 a case to $47. Our grease that we use 60 jugs of grease a week per jug went from $18 to $45. Fish went from 60 to 100. Shrimp, oysters doubled. So there was no choice. It was either cease and desist, or we have to take an increase. And most of those prices, by the way, they hadn't changed. They hadn't altered. They've come down a little bit, but not like what we would have hoped for.
So how do you manage that within a business that your prices are constantly changing, but you still have a business to run and you have customers that you have to keep happy because they're closely watching their budgets on what they can afford?
Right.
I mean, that's got to be a very tight rope to have to walk.
It is, and that's why we haven't just, a lot of people and a lot of good restaurant owners every year, they do like a 3% or a 5%. Mm-hmm. I've always been a 99-cent guy. So I'm like $7.99, $8.99, $9.99.
Right.
I don't like the $7.23 or the $9.57. I like it to be straightforward. So because of that, we don't have the opportunity to go up as much as the percentage guy. And that's why, we only do it every 2-3 years. But every 2 or 3 years, it's proven prices start to get out of control. So we have to go up. 50 cents to $1 on a plate is normally the range that we're in. And you just have to do it. But I will tell you,
many of years probably you having to eat those price increases before you're having to go up. Would that be a fair statement?
Absolutely, 100%. First time we ever went up on prices was the oil spill. Way back when. I can't even remember when that was.
Yeah, BP when they did all that stuff, and seafood price went through the roof.
It went through the roof. And then the next thing you know, fries are going through the roof. Yeah, catfish is going through the roof. I'm like, they're not out there in the ocean,
Something having the ponds?
Yeah. So that was our first increase ever, was with the oil spill. And so I put up signage. Please understand, this is why. But even in a market as small, comparatively speaking, as Monroe is, people were just so gracious, so kind. Like, hey, we get it. We understand.
But that's because of the years of working relationships that people understand that. They understand what you and Casey stand for and the service you're trying to deliver to the community. I don't think you could have been the person sitting in the back room just counting your money and go up on price and people be the as understanding. So I think relationships matter.
Yeah.
When we talked about March or April 2020 that everything you knew kind of changed within the business, and you had that period of having to regroup. You went through a restaurant remodel. Then fast forward 2020 to late August. I think it was late August. We had a hurricane hit Louisiana, and I think it was probably the outside of Katrina caused more damage in Louisiana than any other hurricane. I know Katrina caused tremendous amount of damage in South Louisiana, but running all the way through the state, we had massive power outages, and we had a huge crew that Energy had up here that was working it. And why don't you take over from there? Tell us kind of what happened, how you got involved.
And I don't want to make this church, but it was a God thing, because there is no doubt at that point, right in the middle of COVID, we needed help, more help than what the government could give. So any business, people would call, like nowadays, folks call and say, hey, we got to feed 40 people. Can you come out and cater for us? Well, no, ma'am, but we can deliver it hot and fresh. Back then it was like, yes, absolutely, sure, done. Let's do it. And it was maybe 2 weeks before Hurricane Laura came through. I met a gentleman that worked for Energy, now a trusted close friend of mine. And when Laura hit, I got a call, and it was, hey, can you feed some folks? I was like, Yeah, I've only done breakfast for about 15, 20 people before at the hunting camp, you know, but I'll figure it out.
How do
It
you
was
prepare?
crazy. I mean, we were literally calling, my manager and myself, we were calling buddies to say, hey, do you have a flat top grill I can borrow? I mean, we didn't have a clue what we were doing. I mean, we had trailers, we had fryers, we had a couple of warmers, but not
But you didn't
what
have
you
enough.
need.
You didn't have enough staff to even man all that, right? So you had to get volunteers, if I remember correctly. And
Church pulled through in a big way
I'm
for
telling
that.
you. So
Michael Wood.
how did that come about? I mean, it's just
Reached out to Michael and said, hey, man, this is what's going on. Just pray for us and this, that, and the other. And the next thing I know, the next morning, we had 10, 15 volunteers show up for breakfast, 10, 15 show up for lunch, 10, 15 show up for dinner. And First Baptist West Monroe really.
so we served a couple of times through that and listened to it. Had a chance to visit with one of your managers at the time that was working with you. I don't know if he still is or not. But kind of walking through I mean, you had a Cisco truck that was backed up there. I mean, that's your grocery delivery company, right? So I don't know if it was because you just needed a reefer or it was just that much stuff that you guys were going
It was
through.
that much stuff.
But
It was actually two.
the system that was put in place to feed all of those people just really blew me away. And I still don't know how y'all really kind of put that together because it had to been like just last minute. It just the call comes, can you do it? You must have put your yes on the table, and y'all went to work. And man, did y'all pull that off in a big way?
We did, and we did because it was such an emotional ride for 10 days. Our ad agency, Low and Tread, actually put together a video. I don't know if you've ever seen that. Mm-hmm. But what I said in that video is, this is pretty much, paraphrasing, this is my hometown, and we're going to take care of the folks that are taking care of us. And what an honor and a privilege and a blessing to be able to do that. Brian, you wouldn't think about it. These are strong men.
Yeah.
They're tough. They can do anything. And quite frequently, they will come through that line with tears in their eyes and say, man, we ain't had nothing but Vienna sausage for 3 days. Thank you. Thank you so much. There's no way I can repay that. I mean, it's unreal, and it doesn't happen often, and
Sure.
we don't ever wish it to happen.
Nobody really wants to work in that kind of environment, just thrown into
it's tough. We were walking around in 6 inches of rainwater and mud, and I mean, it's not a easy situation, but when those folks come through the line and say, dude, thank you so much, makes it all worth it.
And there had to be some level of community with you, or just saying, I don't know how we're going to make it work, but it's going to work, because I can't imagine you had costs figured out, or how we're going to pay for things, what are we going to charge, how much are we going to be able to get back. We just know that we're going to do it, and we're going to figure it out, and it's all going to be good. Or was it more organized than that?
No, it was not, especially not the first time or two. I was calling father-in-law, brother-in-law, hey, can you bring a truck? Can you bring me this? Can you go pick this up? Can you go to Jackson and pick this up? At one point, Cisco couldn't get to us.
Yeah.
And said, hey, we don't, all our drivers are out of hours. They can't legally drive to you. So I called Steve Man Construction. I said, Steve, don't you have a big box truck? And he's like, yeah, what you need? And I'll never forget, I said, man, I've got to get some groceries. We're feeding these guys. Is there any way you could drive to Jackson? Because I can't leave. I have to be there, And I'll never forget. He said, Pam, you want to drive to Jackson and help Doug out? And she said, sure. And 4 hours later, there they were with our groceries. So it was huge support from the entire community, from the church, friends, family. It was a good deal.
Yeah, it was really awesome to be able to see something like that come together, and really at that moment tie a community together, because I don't remember. At least my area of West Monroe, we didn't get hit hard. I never lost power through the whole entire time, so we were very blessed through it. But I know a lot of people did. But just to be able to see the community pull together for that event was pretty amazing.
It was.
So now we fast forward almost a year to the day later, and then we have another hurricane hit, and it hit South Louisiana really, really hard, and you got the call again.
Yeah, it was just, they expected that storm to come up the same way Laura did, to come up through Monroe. But when it hit the coast, it just turned east and just demolished that end of it. No one was prepared for that or expected that. And so we got a call and said, hey, can you come?
And it did a lot more damage than what Laura did all the way, even though Laura was more spread out. But what hurricane was that?
Ida.
So when Ida come in, it kind of parked there for a little while, and it really did a ton of damage. And I want to say the recovery for that, on some level, still could be going on today. But I know from power or from a utility standpoint, it took over a year to get the bulk of that taken care of.
You got to understand, we would be taking meals to men down there in the field, and they're in the middle of a swamp in a airboat trying to negotiate and navigate putting poles and power lines back up. It's not just simple on the side of the road.
Correct. I mean, bucket truck and we're good to go.
It was tough.
But that was a little bit bigger operation that you were responsible for there, wasn't it?
It was, but we recruited help and had more help at that point, and it did. It went well.
But I can still, even though you've been through it before, it still was a lot of, we got to figure it out when we get there to be able to make that happen.
For sure.
And was that call came out because of what you guys experienced up here and was able to help out? Is that why you got the call for this one,
I guess that's part of it, but part of it is no one expected it to do what it did and take that eastward turn.
And there's really nothing down there locally that survived.
There was no one had power.
How long were you down there for?
A month.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was tough. I can remember driving back home on the last day, and I got around Alexandria and was like, man, something just feels different. Feels better. I know I'm excited to be home with my family again, but something feels different. And I realized that I felt different because I wasn't looking at devastation. I had been for a month in the middle of devastation.
All you saw was despair.
That's it. But I will say this, the community down there, like you would go into Home Depot or Lowe's, they had generators going, and those people were just as happy as they can be. And, hey, man, how you doing? And this, that, and the other. Oh, you need help getting that generator in your truck? That is a very resilient group of folks down there.
Yeah.
I don't know how they do it, but they did it with a smile on their face, and God bless them for it.
Well, that's the people that know how to choose how they want to respond to something, because we can, no matter the adversity that we're dealt, we still have a choice how we're going to respond to it. And
right.
I'm not necessarily judging people based on if they're negative or positive on their response to it, but people need to realize you do have a choice when it comes to responding to the environment you're in. Does it suck? Absolutely. But does it make it even better to sit there and gripe and complain about it 24/7, or could it be better if you just rolled your sleeves up and get out and help a neighbor?
Yep.
You made the comment earlier, you don't want to make this about church. I ain't afraid of making it about church. I know that your involvement in the church is you've been a steady, faithful Christian brother in Christ for many years. I too am as well. When I look at the things that happen, food not included, inside the walls of Catfish Charlie, I think it's a true testament of the faith that you walk and the people that feel comfortable expressing their faith in public by just I don't even know the number. You may not even know, but the amount of men's groups, Christian men's group, and ladies Christian groups that meet at Catfish Charlie's for lunch. I don't know if you have it in the evening or what, but I mean, that back room usually is going to have some group in there that is going to be talking about their faith. So
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about that. And did you have people early on just say, hey, we'd like a little space to be able to meet and have a men's group and have lunch, and do you have those conversations with people? Tell me a little bit about that.
Maybe early on there was some conversations like that. I can remember one of the first ones was Miss Kay Robertson, and she would come in there with her sunglasses on, not to be seen or noticed by a lot of folks, and she would bring a group of ladies back there and would meet, and then we just started. You're right, it's very regular. 10, 15, 20, 25. Christ Church comes on the last Tuesday of every month and brings 60, 70 people for the men's luncheon. But I think at the end of the day, I have people almost every day, Brian, say, why don't you serve alcohol? Why don't you serve beer? Just a little beer, just a little wine. And I tell them all, it ain't because I'm not going to go to the hunting camp and I might enjoy a beer or a glass of wine. So I'm not saying it's wrong, this, that, and the other, but I bought it like it was.
If it ain't fixed.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Don't fix it.
And if you do that, if you make that change, I think there's going to be a lot of those church groups and families that say, hey, we're going to go elsewhere, because they are looking for a family-friendly environment. And that's important to me. Family is everything, So I think that's, one of the reasons that we do have so many church groups and men and women's groups and such that meet with us, because they know they're not going to have to listen to some idiot that's had too much to drink.
Sure.
So.
And then all the opportunities you have given in the past. I don't know if it's something that you're currently doing. I haven't seen one happen in a while, and it's not because it's not happening, I just haven't noticed. But you would run fundraisers anytime somebody wanted to do something, you would allow Catfish Charlie to be part of that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, from that standpoint of being able to give back to the community, I think is very powerful.
It has been a tremendous blessing. Basically, what we do is if you have a nonprofit, whether it's for a baseball team, a softball team, a football team, a band, high school band, or if you have a child that is battling cancer, we will say, hey, let's set this up on this date from 4 p.m. to close, and you bring in a couple of people at a time to help bust the tables and this, that, and the other. And then everybody that y'all bring in, we give back 25%. Wow. And we've done hundreds, if not thousands, of those. And man, I mean, here's the deal, Brian. You involve your work family in that, and they get that blessing. Mm-hmm. It's not just the family or the ball team that are receiving money. It's us, me and my wife and my kids and my, crew.
Absolutely.
That get to have that blessing.
If you didn't have that man or woman frying the fish or working that grill, that would not have been possible to raise that money. I mean, they're part of it.
Right.
And for them to be able to see that, I can see where you would say that that's a huge blessing that they're getting. So what's next for you guys? Where do you see Catfish Charlie down the road? I know that you came from a legacy of an uncle and a grandfather that was in the business. Do you see any of your kids wanting to possibly take the ball and carry it down the field one day?
Yes, but I'm not sure that's what I want for them. It's a tough job, but I have got 3 kids. My oldest son, Nick, is 22, and he has actually just come back working for us, and has learned a lot and grown up a lot and loves people, and doing really well with management, Will that be something he wants to carry on the legacy? I don't know. Time will tell. My daughter, 18, people tell me every day, Doug, she is unbelievable how she loves people and loves to talk and laugh. And now she's going to Tech next year. She's starting nursing school, So will that be something she wants to circle back to? Maybe. Who knows? Now, Jack, 14-year-old, he's worried about the ladies right now. He ain't worried about the restaurant. And so, but, I've always told, and Casey and I have always said together, let's bless them through the business, what God gives us, and then maybe one day we'll sell it and they can all reap the benefit from it. Don't ever, to be quite honest with you, and I'll never forget, I sat with David Hearn at Catfish Cabin when I went to buy the restaurant. And he was a customer of mine with point of sale.
Mm-hmm.
So out of respect, I wanted to tell him about my decision, And he looked at me and he said, do you realize, he said, that's good and I appreciate it. And, I'll help any way I can and so on and so forth. He said, but do you realize how many ball games you're going to miss? How many recitals you're going to miss? Vacations you're going to miss? And for the most part, he was spot on. It's a tough business. It is. But we have been blessed through it, and we're going to suffer through it and get through it the best way we can. And then if it ends up in the hands of a kiddo, then that'll be okay. We'll help them too.
Well, Doug, I think what you and your wife have built within our community is great. I know you didn't start it from its inception, but it's totally different today in many respects than it was 2 years ago when you purchased it. The roots are probably still there, but
15 years. Don't say 2 years. 15 years.
No, the 2 years that was open before you guys
I got you. Okay.
The 15 years you guys have owned it, y'all have carried on such a solid tradition within our community. And I didn't even think about, Catfish Cabin. Even though I wouldn't walk between the two distance of them, they're technically walking distance between them. And we've had two family businesses that have been able to thrive in our community for many, many years.
Yeah.
And it's just a testament to the quality of food and the service that you bring to the marketplace. The community loves you guys. If anyone ever doubts that, they can just try to go at 12 o'clock on any day of the week and see how packed it is. So, Doug, what you guys have done, is I think it's a treasure to our community. I really enjoyed watching the progression of it over the years. And I just want to thank you for what you guys do, and just keep doing what you're doing. And thanks for giving me the opportunity to just be able to hear your story today.
Awesome. Appreciate it, bud.
Yes,
thanks.
Sir.
Good to see you.
You too.
All right.
Thank you for taking the time to watch or listen to this podcast. We really appreciate your involvement. Please leave us a comment, or even better yet, subscribe to this podcast and hit that notification bell so that you can be alerted for every new episode when it hits.